People who have met friends online, what did you immediately regret? I know a girl who befriended an American gamer and talked him into buying her a free plane ticket, which she ended up using as a free vacation. She said she liked to walk past them at the airport looking for other people's girls. She wouldn't give her real picture so they wouldn't know she'd done it at least twice. Cold-blooded. I used to play Quake a lot, made a few friends through Quake, and about 15 years ago I moved to the state where one of those friends lives. When I met him in person, we got along great, although it was a little awkward. He said I could visit him anytime, but it was out of town. We lost touch after that, but last year I was contacted out of the blue by a relative of his. She told me that my friend often talked about me using my old screen name, and that I had recently been murdered by another old internet friend who he had invited to visit him at his house. It was eventually ruled self-defense. She wanted to know what I knew about the killer. He started showing a strange sexuality. I was 15 and F was 19. He also started spreading lies about my other friends to keep me away from them, and blaming all his personal problems on me, refusing to see a therapist. He also said he would kill himself without me, which made me feel terribly trapped. We met on a gay dating site. I wasn't particularly fussed when I realized that he had fully committed me to catfighting. His profile picture was great, but in real life he told me he didn't like it when I said ugly. He complained about other things about me as well. I looked at him askew and told him I wasn't going to give him BJ's that night and wanted to leave. He said sure, but thought it was appropriate to give me a parting gift. On Xbox, I met a freshman in high school and we remained best friends even after I quit Xbox. We keep in touch to this day. He only lived 2 towns away, but very close to where my parents used to take me. So I saw him for the first time at my high school graduation. I asked him, is he single? We were having a good time until I asked him. Blank is a girl he dated in junior high, and we talked about it a lot and joked around a bit since I was often the third wheel at their Xbox Live parties. He and his friends would giggle at the awkward reactions I was aiming for. Then I remembered that another guy in his friend group was also dating her and gloating about them being Eskimo brothers. So he must have remembered who I was from Xbox too. After a few more jokes, my friend approached me. I quickly shut up and left the place. But if you're the kind of person who openly jokes about playing piano in church at AIT or playing Honorala for years, you shouldn't come back to this neighborhood. If you have the opportunity, you should reconnect with them. Mistakes happen all the time, and they happen throughout life. There are not always good people who can help you deal with them. If you can get in touch with them, we've known each other for 4 or 5 years. We eventually got together and had a good time. After I left home, he wanted to meet me and I agreed. We had a good time and thanks to him, I got into a lot of things. He showed me cool movies and we played games together. I told my parents that I was gay and it was secretive for about 4 years. My parents are supportive of me. My father-in-law is a bit withdrawn, but accepting of me. I was happy until one day we stopped for lunch at a small sandwich store near our house. I asked him if he wanted fries and he said no, just a sandwich. As soon as the food arrived and plates were placed on the table, this mother grabbed my fries. The desperation of this woman finished me off. The first problem was that I used a picture of her when she was younger and thinner. She said she weighed over 300 pounds and couldn't walk for long. She ended up walking with a cane. I didn't know how to respond to her. We walked and sat and walked and sat and talked for a while. She warned me that she had anger issues and could lash out at me at any time. She was constantly looking at her cell phone or yelling. Anyway, we met on a date to watch a movie. As we watched the movie, she burped or farted during every romantic scene. Each time, she joined me in the theater to watch the movie. After the date was over, I never wanted to see her again, but apparently I had left a good impression of her. She continued to call me every night, usually in tears, telling me how much she hated where she lived and why she couldn't leave. She was looking for a relationship that would save her from her life. She would rather have a boyfriend and just go about her business. Her only job was working at a fast food restaurant. It didn't last long, a couple months at most. She always smelled like fish. She dropped out of university because, in her words, I couldn't stand arrogant people. I really couldn't stand them. She also didn't like studying. After a while, she stopped contacting me. I believe she took the hint and backed off. She actually went to another man who was the literal definition of fortune soyboy, only worse. He can barely hold down a job, can barely support himself and drinks like an idiot. She started contacting me again, begging me to save her from him. She left a 16-page tirade on Facebook. I haven't heard from her since. Describe her public belching and farting accompanied by applause. This shit is already really cold. It's like a nightmare. He got drunk at my house and peed on my couch while I was sleeping. Then he tried to cover it up by spraying me with lots of perfume. Link, my husband and I had been playing Dungeons and Dragons online for a while. He was a truck driver and we were passing through the area, so we decided to meet up with him. After a few years he started having problems and we told him he could stay at our house and offered him a job, but he refused and lied to us so he wouldn't get kicked out. He was nice to me, yelled at my kids and talked about me behind my back. If you're reading this, weirdo Chris, no wonder you're single. Finally on Reddit, I can join in. I met her through our favorite band. They had a free concert scheduled a few hours away, and I wrote a message asking if anyone wanted to come along. She replied. When I tried to book tickets, they were gone, but we kept in touch. I still thought I was the same, and when we first met it was very awkward, but we had our first kiss and started dating. It was a long-distance relationship. I started to discover my sexuality and she became very controlling and insecure in our relationship, constantly asking if I loved her. I think she had her reasons. We broke up and eventually blocked each other out. I may not have regretted it right away, but I definitely did after a while. We were two teenagers in our first relationship, and the blame was definitely on both of us. I hope she is doing well now. This man is as clingy as a hook and almost always gets on my nerves. He's always furious that I'm not helping his game, and when I complain about it, he tells me to calm down and stop being angry. Honestly, I'm going to take a 3-month vacation because dealing with him is exhausting. And I'm not the only one who feels this way. Many of his friends and people he is with say the same thing I do. You described one of my friends perfectly. It's insanely scary. He was a guy from the UK and a member of a big RP guild playing Dark Age of Camelot. We met at a pub with a similar name to the guild, wandered around town and made some great buddies. Unfortunately, they were either then or have since been very successful at something, achieved something really great or lived a great life, and I'm in my 40s and still browsing Reddit trying to figure out why my car flies into a black screen during a match. The thing is, I'm still browsing Reddit trying to figure out why my machine shuts down during a game. It's probably because of the heat. It's all about the heat here. It's horrible weather. I was at the store and I walked by a rainbow t-shirt and she goes, I have a rainbow t-shirt, I have a rainbow t-shirt, I have a rainbow t-shirt, I have a rainbow t-shirt. And after that, she went on a big tirade about how she loves Asian men, but only when they wear Western clothes, abandon their cultural traditions, and speak English. Not immediately, but about the 3rd time I met her, she pointed a knife at me and harassed me. I really regret that one. Oh, back in the good old days of Counter-Strike, there was a guy named Dwayne in my group. I don't know who he was, but he was fun and a good CS player. A few years later I was at a bar with a friend, his wife, and Dwayne, who my friend's wife was dating. Dwayne and my friend's wife were dating. He was cool. I flew to Arizona to meet up with a buddy I met at Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. When I flew to Arizona, he threw a little party for me and we all went drinking and smoking. After the party subsided, we decided to play Xbox in the living room. The room was pretty dark, so I couldn't see anything but the light from the TV screen. I lay down on their couch. I felt a little uncomfortable, so I rolled around on the couch, but I couldn't get comfortable. So I got up and looked at the couch and noticed that his grandfather was sleeping on it. We immediately went outside, and as I looked at the face of the 90-year-old man, I realized that my life would never be the same. I was a member of a fan forum for an NFL soccer team. One of the guys who posted here regularly had the best sense of humor and was the most energetic online of the entire group. We decided to meet at one of the games. He turned out to be the most boring person I had ever met in real life. I left the place at halftime. I've known people like that. Some people are brave behind the screen. He turned out to be pretty racist. He toned it down when he played TeamSpeak with us and then Discord. It wasn't until we had lunch together that he revealed his true colors. It was very awkward during lunch. Since then, I haven't seen him again. When I was in high school, I played on a local BBS in Denver. It was a portal site where you could play games like Quake and Doom and all sorts of MUDs. I played regularly with a guy named Rabila. We exchanged phone numbers, chatted and played in person over modem. It turned out he was in the same class and played soccer in the same recreational league as me. I met him and a friend of his who also played on a BBS called Vodka. We didn't hang out much, but one day we went to a party organized by BBS. We lost touch for a year until I found out that he and his friend were the perpetrators of the Columbine shooting. After college, I went on a month-long road trip up the east coast of the United States. I started in Florida, made it to Connecticut, and then headed west to Wisconsin. I posted on YouTube that I was making this journey and was looking for people to stop it along the way. Luckily, I only had a few hours to be there, but I stopped at a farmhouse in North Carolina. It was a remote farmhouse. I knocked on the door, and out came about 5 kids between the ages of 10 and 13, with no parents. I figured it would be okay, I would only be there for a few hours, and I wanted a break from driving anyway, so I stayed. I asked if they had anything to eat and they directed me to the kitchen. The whole time they were awkward and unsociable. They are clumsy children. They pulled out bread and peanut butter. I asked if there was silverware and realized that the 5 of them had formed a semicircle around me, completely blocking me in. I was standing in the corner of the kitchen with my back to their table. One of the kids, who hadn't said anything for half an hour after I arrived, stepped forward with violently shaking hands. I had just asked for silverware to be brought in, and he had his hand out from behind his back with a huge knife. He was shaking, and he just said in a small, frightened voice, "It's a knife." I put my hands up and pulled him back to the corner. Whoa, what the hell is this? What's going on? He's ready to stab the kid. He immediately put the knives on the counter and backed away, saying he was trying to reference an old YouTube video of me making a sandwich with a huge knife. I was shocked. I sat with him for a bit longer, played Smash Brothers, and left. We met on Craigslist. When I got there, another guy was already there, and he offered $25 for a ride home. I paid it because I really liked him at that point. Food, water, restroom. He also tears my stuff to shreds. This cat is the worst. Sometimes this cat changed my life. By the way, I was living in Ireland and my friend was living in Scotland. In 2012, I was 14, he was 16. We talked every day, played Halo and Mass Effect 3 together. We did this for 3 years, and at the time I didn't consider him my best friend. I knew everything about his life. I was in contact with some of his family members, so I knew some of his real friends as well. In the 4th year, His 360 broke and he bought an Xbox One. We stopped communicating much. Every once in a while we kept in touch through Facebook or something. That all changed in 2017 when he got engaged to a woman. I remember after a few weeks of us communicating, he was already dating. I started getting messages about the wedding. He asked me to be one of the best men. I was 16 years old and had promised to go to his wedding, so I said, yeah, sure. But I scared myself. Later, he told me that the wedding would be held in the US. Let's move to 2018. I flew to the US for the wedding and got to the hotel where everyone was staying. I texted the groom and asked where everyone was. They had left for dinner, so I caught a cab and followed them. As soon as we entered the restaurant, he spotted me, ran up to me, called my old gamer tag and gave me a hug. I had no idea he was so small. My height is only 185 centimeters. I thought he'd be taller, but after that night, I found that he could be a bit of a nuisance if he had nothing to focus on, video games, and I just decided to lock myself in the mansion for 4 days. After that, I had a 2-year relationship with a man who at that point was not making me happy. It was a wedding, and that's where I met one of the groom's women. We both had bad things to say about the groom, and that's how we hit it off. We got along really well and decided to stay together for the whole wedding. She was in a relationship too. We kissed one night and after that I decided I was done with my now ex. After the wedding, she and I flew home the same day and ended up in the same terminal, so we had a nice goodbye. I got home and broke up with my ex the same night. My girlfriend was dumped at a wedding, we didn't see each other for a month or two, and then started seriously dating. She's still with me and I'm happier than I've ever been with anyone I've dated. I met a guy on an AITA fan site and he stopped communicating when I was 12 or 13. That site eventually shut down, but our friends continued to communicate through DeviantArt and MSN Messenger in the early 2000s. I never met him in person, but I spent all summer nights peeking at the internet and chatting with everyone on MSN. Some of the people on the old Neopet fan site were older teenagers, and I knew this guy was an adult. I don't remember his exact age, but probably around 20 to 30 years old. Suddenly he asked me to send him a picture of myself. I wasn't satisfied with that, so I sent him a picture from my DeviantArt. That's when he went silent. He said it wasn't enough and that he wanted to see what I really looked like. I remember saying that I wasn't satisfied with that, but he kept insisting. I said something like, if you were my friend, I wouldn't ask you over and over again. Red lights flashed and eventually I blocked him and stopped communicating altogether. If you're reading this, you had a really creepy, pedo-ish story about a guy who met a girl on Neopets, groped her and ended up having sex with her. He was in his 20s or 30s and she was 12. I was a big Neopets fan, but never met anyone there. When I was in high school, I played Counter-Strike with a large group of people. One of them lived about 6 hours away from my house, and we ended up starting a long-distance relationship. He was my first love, and when you're young and stupid you take a lot of shit you don't deserve. During university we broke up a few times and on one of those occasions I met someone else, but it didn't work out. Eventually we got back together but he was furious that I could move on. He started slapping me, lashing out at me and verbally abusing me. I believed him when he told me that if I left him, my life would be ruined and no one would love me. I am ashamed to admit that I stayed with him and tried to have a relationship for 2 more years. Now it's over and I wish him a happy song. Once upon a time, when I played World of Warcraft, about a dozen guild members would gather at the guildmaster's house from all over the country. It was a lot of fun, and the next year we did it again, adding 1 or 2 more. My new girlfriend ended up sleeping with the guildmaster. The guildmaster and his girlfriend broke up and the guild broke up. The guildmaster and his girlfriend broke up, the guild broke up. I lost touch with the guildmaster and the other girl. I met a lot of people on the movie site and became friends with one person to the point where he added my wife as a friend on Facebook. I knew he was HIV positive but thought he had it under control. When I found out he was in the hospital, I called him out of kindness. We laughed and had a horrible conversation in private. After about 15 minutes, the nurse said he needed bed rest. We said goodbye and said we would talk again soon. The next week he sent me and my wife a text message. At the end of the message we wrote, "I love you," and promised to see each other soon. 5 days later, we learned that he had passed away. When he was diagnosed with cancer about 2 weeks before we spoke on the phone, HIV had weakened his body and he had to choose between undergoing radiotherapy to extend his life by 6 months or accepting his fate. He accepted his fate. I regret that I never got to see him in person, but I will never regret that phone call and the last words I said to him, "I love you." It wasn't me, but one of my friends didn't regret it one bit. They were in a wild guild together, and he didn't seem to mind. He eventually tracked her down, flew from Canada to Alabama, then drove almost 2 hours to her house and asked his clueless uncle to let him in. He sat on her bed until she came out of the bathroom. This was all completely unplanned and unannounced. He showed up with the intention of getting her away from her boyfriend. That's what he told her, but she panicked and kicked him out of the house. 7 months later, he did it all over again. This time he sent messages to her boyfriend and her friends, showing them a fake message log of how much she and he loved each other and how much they hated each other. Fortunately, her friends wised up pretty quickly and started discussing and understanding him. After that he was banned from the guild and actually created a new account and came back for a while, but because of his habit of typing messages he was eventually figured out. He started asking about her again. Over the past few years he has also made several attempts to find a way to talk to her. To this day she's afraid he'll show up again, but luckily she doesn't live near where she used to live, so she's become more cautious with information. I had a little chat with the girl. I decided to go on a date with her friend at the beach, and it was really nice. She looked a little different than she did in the picture, but that was okay. When I got home, she texted me asking me to define a relationship and I, being 17, panicked and replied, "You're my girlfriend." I ended up going to her place and met her family twice. She never came to visit me and I would have to spend 2 hours to get to her. Her mom was wonderful, but her dad hated me. He was homophobic, but that wasn't the bad part. The bad part is that 2 months later, when I truly fell in love with her, she became a counselor at a Christian camp and texted me that God wanted us to break up. So I don't regret it one bit. But I was very close to a man I met on Yahoo Messenger when I was about 12 years old. We ended up getting together. We did and didn't socialize for the next 6 years, but we were always very close and enjoyed talking to each other. We had each other's phone numbers at the time, we texted each other, and I remember very vividly the few phone calls we talked on. I was a shy, introverted kid, so we talked about everything, which was just incredible. I liked him, but we both dated other people and spent most of our teenage years as good friends. Honestly, I always thought he wouldn't be interested in a long-distance relationship, so I never checked out that possibility. Except for some harmless flirting, I was 19, he was 21. We confessed to each other, and I've always loved him. We dated for about a year before he decided to move to where I live. This was before he even met me in person, so it was a pretty big leap, and I was scared. But he never admitted he was scared, laughs. Meeting him at the airport was great, very surreal. I was nervous about my appearance and then he saw me and we both smiled and hugged. We've been together for 7 years now, we're married and expecting our first child in November. I used to paint a lot on DeviantArt and was looking for Chan. I was severely depressed and felt alienated from friends and family. Just talking to other people about everyday things made me feel so great. I joined a few groups on Skype. We chatted about life and played online games. One couple were nice people, one of whom was trying to quit smoking. The other had just been promoted at work. These are people with real lives. They were all far apart until I got this email. I thought about deleting it because it seemed weird, but then I read it. I had the wrong person. Based on my email name, he thought it was a person who is also a model, cosplayer or something like that. We exchanged views, I corrected him, but we kept in touch. He also liked paranormal, loved movies and writing and was nearby, and after about a month of daily conversations and texting, I decided I wanted to go on a date with him. At this time I had moved and was emotionally overwhelmed, but he was very kind and talked to me about my problems. When we met, sparks flew. No, I couldn't actually look him in the eye and broke out in a sweat when I realized how handsome he was and how stupid I was. We kissed. It may sound corny, but I felt like Dorothy had been transported to Oz. My life had become colorful again. Anyway, we're getting married this year. It's the sweetest event, not inducing, but still very sweet. Congratulations to you, and I'm so happy for you and your family. I met the guy when I was playing Vanilla WoW. We became friends right away. We ran a successful guild together and socialized almost every day. Honestly, this guy who lived on the other side of the country became my best friend, and after about 6 years of playing, he was getting ready to go to Florida and decided to stop by my house while he was there. We hung out, chatted, played PS4, and he left. It was a great night. We've been friends for almost 13 years now and he's still my best friend. We still talk every day and my only regret is that we didn't get to spend more time together during that time. We both got married and had children. He served 2 terms in the military and lives on the other side of the US. We always keep in touch even though we are separated by 5 hours. Subscribe to our channel here. Until then, we'll be releasing a new video every day. Watch our other videos as well. See you soon.